Hi guys, so we've talked through 3 methods of texture mapping, and now I'm just going to talk through the last one, which is texture mapping for applying JPEGs. Okay, so another way you can add texture to your model is by using a JPEG image straight onto your model. Okay, so I just went to Google and I found this floor tile image. Okay, again, it's a large size and I've just downloaded it to my desktop. Okay. So I'm just using the wall because it's an easier example. So you can see that on my wall I've put a floor or timber flooring shader, okay, and I'm okay with the way that's looking. Okay, so it may not be what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my Finder again to my desktop. Oh, maybe. If we can see where I've saved that. Oh, let me just go back to here. Oh, it didn't let me download it. Okay, let's try again. And you can see down here it's blocking my download, which is a little bit annoying. So I'm going to choose maybe this one. Okay, this one. Okay, just so it's got a bit of pattern so you can see, that's all. And I'm just going to save it. Yep, and that one's okay. Alright, so I've got my Finder window open. What I'm going to do is just click on my texture and just drag it straight onto the wall that I want it to be applied onto. Okay, and you can see that the JPEG has kind of been added as a tile. And if I look over on my layers, it's been added underneath my layer, okay, as like a sub shader to the one that's been applied. Alright, so we can see the size of the tile here. If we click, it's not really the right size, okay, so what I'm going to do is click on the HV button. And this gives us this menu, which talks about the dimensions primarily. So we've got the width, these ones here talk about the width and length of the texture. These ones here talk about the horizontal and vertical space used for the repeated texture. Okay, then we've got the repeat, like horizontal and vertical. Then we've got mirroring, horizontal and vertical as well. We can flip it, okay, and then we can, this one here stretches it to fit. Alright, so we can play with these settings. So we can increase the scale of our tile, okay, or we could make it smaller if we wanted to. So say if I wanted it this size, I could repeat it. Okay, and it would actually look more like a floor tile. I could then mirror it if I wanted to in both directions as well. So you can see that there are a lot of adjustable options, okay, in relation to this. You will notice, however, that it is stretching along the wall, the top of the wall, because it's going across the entire layer. Right, so that's just something to be careful of. We could flip it if we wanted to, and if I click stretch to fit, it will make one tile fit across the entire wall, which may be what I want to do or not. You can also click on your preview display and manipulate the size of the JPEG as well if you want to. Okay, and you can see it automatically goes back to tiling. Right, so there are a lot of options, and then you could, these are the keep in proportion options. So if I untick that and increase the scale, you'll see it takes it out of proportion and moves it in opposite directions. So there are heaps of things that you can do with this, and you'll see here that the zoom has increased a lot. So if I say maybe 10%, it's not going to let me do that. I'm going to put it back into proportion and make it much, much smaller. And you can see now my tile's much, much smaller, but it's spreading across the floor It's creating different patterns. I'm going to take off these. You could create a line across if you wanted to. It's really up to you. Okay, so once you're happy with the way it looks, so I'm going to say that I'm happy with this placement for the time being. I'm actually just going to move it down so the edge of the repeat pattern is on the floor. Yeah, so I'm going to say I'm pretty happy with that. So once I'm happy, I'm going to click OK. All right, and then you can see we've got all of our other options back. So I could rotate this 90 degrees if I wanted to. I can increase the reflection. I can make it less or more shiny, the bump, transparency, the lighting. Again, I could color mix it if I wanted to. Could make it purple, could make it gray, or even like a dark black. Okay, it's up to you. The other option that's additional here is the Use Alpha channel. So if I click on this, it gives me the option to play with the imported images transparency. Okay, you can activate it and deactivate the transparency of the alpha channel images. Okay, and Atlantis reads those. Okay, so it's just an extra thing if you want to do that, to add it in. I don't need that on currently, so I'm not going to do that. Okay, again, I can change around so it's projecting vertically. If I said horizontally, it would change the orientation of the JPEG I've put in. Okay, so there are a whole lot of different options that you guys have to play with. So this inserts it as a JPEG on top. So this means it'll be available in this model, but not in the any other models that you create because it's not added to your library at this stage. Okay, so if we want to check how this has been applied, if we open the material parameters, we can untick visibility. So we know it's been applied correctly and the JPEG has merged with the original shader because when I turn off visible, the whole thing disappears. Okay. So this gives you a lot of options, especially with flooring for the tiling. All right, so you can simply drag and drop your texture onto it. If the drag and drop doesn't work, you can also right click and say add texture. Okay, so if I do add texture now, you can see it takes me to my computer and then I can choose the images that I've got if I want to. Okay, so that is texture mapping 4. Okay, so the application of JPEGs. Yep. So now spend the rest of your time going back through those 4 texture application methods and having a go at each of them in turn. Alright, this wall is really interesting that I've been working on because it's been reflecting these blue options that I have down the bottom here. Okay, so just keep in mind what your model is reflecting as well because that changes the look of the JPEG application. Thanks guys!